I always tell people that the first week of December feels different. Not in the holiday way everyone talks about, not cheerful or cozy or magical. It's the kind of cold that stings your skin the second you step outside, the kind that makes the world feel a little emptier, a little quieter, a little more dangerous. This happened on a Tuesday night, just a few days into December. I had just finished closing at work, and by the time I walked outside, the sun had been long gone. The parking lot lights barely helped. Most of them flickered weakly, buzzing like they were running on their last bit of energy. I remember pulling my jacket tighter and thinking, I should have just gotten a ride. But I hated inconveniencing anyone, and the bus stop was only a 6-minute walk away. 6 minutes felt longer that night. When I finally reached the bus shelter, I saw him. At first, he didn't even look like a person, just a bundled shape in dark clothes, hunched over at the far end of the shelter, hood up, shoulders stiff, face completely buried in shadow. I barely glanced at him. I didn't want to appear paranoid, but the presence of another person immediately made me uneasy. Not because of anything he did, just because of the way he wasn't moving. People in that kind of cold, they always move. A bounce in their step, rubbing their hands, stomping their feet, something. This guy was still, too still. I sat on the opposite side, pretending to scroll through my phone even though I had zero reception in that area. The wind cut through the cracked glass panels behind us, letting in bursts of freezing air. My teeth were already beginning to chatter. A minute passed, then 2, and every few seconds I glanced up, never fully at him, but just enough to see if he had shifted. He hadn't. His head was still pointed down, hood dipping low enough to hide every feature. I told myself he was probably just tired, or homeless, or minding his own business, but something kept tugging at my brain. The way he was sitting so rigidly, the way his hands were invisible, the way he seemed hyper-aware of me even though he hadn't moved. Another minute passed, and then, as I was pretending to read an old email, the man slowly turned his head toward me. It wasn't a normal look. It wasn't quick or casual. It was slow, deliberate, measured, like he wanted me to notice the movement. I froze, keeping my eyes locked on my phone screen, even though my vision had started to blur from fear. My heart thudded so hard, I felt it in my throat. I sensed him staring at me, though I still couldn't see his face under the hood. The shelter felt smaller with each passing second, like the cold was pressing in from every angle. Then I heard it. Fabric shifting. The man stood up. He moved without any of the small grunts or shuffles people usually make when they rise from a bench. It was silent. Too silent. I swallowed hard, staring straight ahead as he walked from his side of the shelter toward mine. Not next to me, not past me. He walked behind the bench I was sitting on. I felt the metal beneath me vibrate as he placed his hands on the top rail of the bench. He was directly behind my head. I didn't turn around. I didn't breathe. Every instinct screamed, "Don't move. Don't let him know you're scared." Then he leaned down. His voice was right next to my ear, so close I felt the warmth of his breath on the side of my neck. "You take the 825 every night." Every hair on my arm stood straight up, my vision tunneled, my body locked. He knew my schedule. He had been watching me. I didn't answer. I didn't even blink. A long, stretched-out second passed. Then I heard him straighten up, the bench frame giving a small metallic creak. Footsteps followed, but not out toward the sidewalk like I expected. They moved behind the shelter, into the dark patch of dead shrubs, mud, and shadow. Then, silence. Pure, suffocating silence. I forced myself to check my phone. The screen lit up, reflecting my terrified face. I switched to the transit app. The bus was delayed. 14 minutes. 14 minutes felt like a death sentence. I stepped outside of the shelter, heart hammering, trying desperately to look like I wasn't about to pass out. The street was dead, nothing but the hum of distant traffic and the wind scratching against plastic and metal. I kept scanning the bushes. Every shift of shadow made me tense. Every crunch of distant snow made my chest tighten. I stood there the entire time, exposed under the streetlight, because the shelter suddenly felt like a trap, a place he could hide behind, a place where I wouldn't see him coming. When the bus finally arrived, I practically threw myself inside. I sat next to the window, breath fogging the glass as I stared out, expecting, knowing I would see him somewhere nearby. But he wasn't there. The bushes were still. The shelter was empty. The bus drove away, and only then did I feel the adrenaline begin to crash through my system. I didn't go home right away. I rode past my stop just in case, and the next day, I took a different bus, and the next, and the next. 3 days later, my coworker forwarded a neighborhood watch alert with a short message. "Is this your stop?" A woman had reported a man following her home from the same shelter, same clothing, same description. She only realized he was behind her when she reached her apartment building. Police never found him. I avoid that bus stop every December now. I still feel eyes on me whenever I walk alone at night, and sometimes, when I'm waiting for a bus in the cold dark, I swear I can still hear the bench creaking behind me. The weirdest part about this story is how normal the beginning felt. December 14th, a Wednesday. Cold, quiet, and uneventful. One of those mid-December days where nothing interesting happens, and you're just trying to get through the week so the holidays can finally start. I got home from work around 6:40 p.m. It was already pitch black outside, and my street was silent except for the occasional crunch of tires passing over frozen slush. Christmas lights glowed from neighbors' porches, the kind of soft, warm lighting that should have made me feel safe. But when I walked up the steps to my building, something on the ground caught my eye. A package, medium-sized, wrapped in brown paper. No logo, no barcode, no shipping labels, just my address, handwritten. And the thing that stopped me cold, the name on it wasn't my legal name. It wasn't even the name I use online. It was a nickname only one person had ever used, a nickname I hadn't heard in years. I stared at it for a long moment, feeling this faint chill that had nothing to do with the December air. My apartment complex doesn't accept unregistered deliveries. Anything from Amazon or UPS or FedEx gets scanned first. Even handwritten envelopes go through the office. But this was sitting at my door, meaning someone put it there personally. I picked it up. It was incredibly light, almost empty. My first thought was that my mom sometimes sends holiday things early, but she would never write my nickname from 2 apartments ago. And she definitely wouldn't hand deliver anything without telling me. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and set the package on the kitchen counter. My apartment was warm, smelling faintly of cinnamon from the cheap candle I kept burning in December. Normally, it was comforting. Tonight, it felt like the last place I wanted to be alone. I examined the wrapping closer. The handwriting looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. The more I looked, the more uncomfortable I got. Something about it felt wrong, but I didn't know why. I tore the paper open carefully. Inside the box was a stack of Polaroids. Just Polaroids. No note, no message. My stomach tightened immediately. I flipped the first one over. It was a photo of my apartment door, taken during the day, from the hallway. The next was my apartment door again, same angle, different lighting. The third was taken at night, then another during the morning. Dozens of them, all of my door. Someone had been coming back over and over, photographing my entrance at different times of the day. My fingers were shaking as I kept flipping through. Each picture felt like a punch to the gut. Then I got to the last one and felt the air leave my lungs. It was a picture of me, standing at my stove, cooking dinner. The angle was from outside my kitchen window. My kitchen window is on the 2nd floor. The only 2 places someone could have taken that photo were either the fire, escape, or the narrow roof ledge above it. I backed away from the counter immediately, staring at the window like something was going to crawl through it. My pulse wouldn't slow down. I grabbed my phone and called the police. I explained everything, stumbling over my words. Officers arrived pretty quickly, probably because a stalker case in December tends to get taken seriously. When they searched outside, they found the fire escape eerily undisturbed, except for one detail. There were footprints in the thin frost on the metal landing. Fresh footprints. They had a technician photograph them, dust them, measure them, whatever it is they do. But the prints were partially melted from body heat, making them difficult to identify. They asked if I had any idea who would send something like this. Only one name came to mind: Mark, my old neighbor. He used to live directly across the hallway from me at my previous apartment. He was never openly aggressive, just unsettling. Too friendly, too attentive, too interested in things that weren't his business. He had used that nickname, the one on the package. He used to smile at me in a way that made my skin crawl, a slow, thoughtful smile that never reached his eyes. But he had moved out after an incident where he was caught lurking outside a woman's apartment door late at night. He claimed he was checking on a noise, but the woman said she heard him whispering to himself. Police never charged him, but management removed him within a month. I never heard from him again. Until now. I showed the officers the Polaroids. They photographed everything, bagged the images, and told me they'd file a report and notify patrol units to drive by more often. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing the wind scratch at my window. I pushed my couch in front of it, even though I knew logically it wouldn't stop anyone truly determined. Every sound made my heart jump. 2 days passed with no updates, then 3. Then, on December 22nd, at 1:19 a.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. No sender name, just a string of random letters. The message said, "You moved from your old place. Took forever to find you again. Merry Christmas." My entire body went numb. I called the police again. They told me to forward the email and they'd have cyber forensics look at it. But when they examined the metadata, they discovered the sender used multiple rerouted servers, meaning the email could have come from anywhere. They couldn't trace it. After that, December became the darkest month of my life. I barely slept. I barely ate. I kept every light on at night. I taped over my windows. I stopped using the stove because the thought of standing in front of that window made me feel exposed. Every time I walked into the hallway, I expected someone to be standing there waiting. I installed a camera above my door, another in my kitchen, another facing the window. For weeks, nothing happened. Then, on January 3rd, the camera over my door sent me a notification. Motion detected. 3:41 a.m. When I opened the feed, the hallway was empty, but I noticed something in the bottom left corner of the frame. A shadow, a partial silhouette. Someone had triggered the camera, but stepped out of view immediately after. I sent the clip to the police. They couldn't identify anything. No face, no distinguishing features, just proof that someone had been standing outside my door while I was sleeping. Nothing ever escalated past that. But every December since, something strange happens. My mailbox gets opened, my motion lights turn on, a knocked-over planner, a faint shadow on the hallway wall that disappears when I turn my head. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if he's still watching me. But someone knows where I live. Someone knows my schedule. Someone knows my kitchen window. And every year, when December rolls around, I start sleeping with the lights on again. People always say, December feels safer than other months. They think the lights, crowds, decorations, and holiday noise make the world less dangerous. They have no idea how wrong they are. This happened on December 20th, 2 years ago. I was living in a small, older apartment building on the edge of town, one of those places where every floor has a long corridor with peeling paint and a smell of cold dust. The kind of building that always feels a little lonely, no matter how many people live inside. My unit was on the second floor, right next to the stairwell, which mattered, because the stairwell wasn't like the ones in newer apartments. It wasn't enclosed or bright or wide. It was narrow, concrete, dimly lit, and beneath the bottom flight of stairs was a hollow crawl-like space where people threw old junk, broken chairs, boxes, forgotten items, a space big enough for someone to hide in. I never used it, but I always felt uneasy walking past it. I just never had a reason to trust that feeling until that night. I got home around 11:15 p.m. after helping close at work. The parking lot was frost white, my breath hanging like smoke in the air. Christmas lights flickered along the roofs, but half of them were dead. Everything looked tired. I walked inside, rubbing my hands together, and started up the stairs. As soon as I reached the first flight, I heard something. Breathing. Slow, low breathing. This wasn't the building creaking or air ducts rattling. It sounded like someone was inhaling just below me, deep under the steps. I froze halfway up. I waited. Listened. Nothing. I told myself I imagined it. I had my headphones around my neck. It could have been music bleeding through. I hurried up the stairs, got inside my apartment, locked the door, and didn't think about it again. At least, not until the next night. It was almost the exact same time. I came home, climbed the stairs, and as I reached the landing, there it was again, breathing. But this time it was louder, and this time I didn't imagine it. I leaned slightly over the stair railing, staring down at the bottom floor. The hallway lights flickered weakly, casting shadows that moved even though the air was still. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing. Silence. I listened again. This time I heard the faint crunch of movement, like someone shifting on concrete. Very slowly. I backed away from the railing and went up the stairs faster than I'd like to admit. When I reached my door, I had this overwhelming urge to look down the stairwell one more time. But I didn't. I locked myself inside and stayed up until 3 a.m., replaying the sounds in my head. On December 22nd, I came home earlier than usual, around 10 p.m. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. The stairwell light was out, turning the entire first flight into dim shadow. I clicked on my phone's flashlight and started up. Halfway up, something caught my eye. A shoe. Not mine. Not my neighbor's. Just one men's shoe lying on the concrete near the space under the bottom steps. It wasn't dirty or old. It wasn't tossed there like trash. It was positioned carefully, facing upward, as if someone had slid their foot out of it right there. My stomach clenched. I should have gone back to my car. I should have called someone. But the stairwell was between me and my apartment. I forced myself to keep walking. I got to the second-floor landing, reached into my bag, pulled out my keys, and dropped them. They clattered loud enough to echo through the stairwell. I froze, because immediately, from the darkness below, something shifted. A soft scrape, concrete against fabric, then a sound that froze every nerve in my body, a footstep, not coming up the stairs, just repositioning, as if someone had been startled, someone under the stairs. I grabbed my keys, rushed into my apartment, slammed the door shut, and locked every bolt twice. My heart was pounding so hard, my hands shook. That night, I barely slept. December 23rd, I debated calling the landlord, telling him someone was hiding under the stairs. But how do you explain something when you barely believe yourself? Around 4 p.m., there was a knock at my door. It was my neighbor, Jenna, from down the hall. "Did you hear about the break-in?" she asked immediately. I felt my throat tighten. "Break-in where?" "The building next door. Someone's been creeping into basement units. They think he's using the stairwell access points to move between buildings." Her voice lowered. "They said he hides in storage areas, like small ones, crawl spaces." My stomach dropped. She kept talking, but I barely heard the rest. My mind was stuck on the shoe, on the breathing, the scraping sound, the movement. Someone was living in the stairwell, waiting, listening, watching us come and go. I got off work early on Christmas Eve, around 8:30 p.m. Snow was falling lightly, the kind that softens everything and makes the world eerily quiet. When I entered the building, the lobby felt wrong. Warm but empty. Still, like the building itself knew something and wasn't telling me. I walked toward the stairs, heart already pounding. Halfway up, the faint breathing floated up again, but this time, it wasn't slow. It was excited, shaky, like whoever was under the stairs knew I was there. My pulse hammered. I took one step back, then another. I lifted my phone, turned on the flashlight, and angled it down between the steps. At first, I saw nothing, just the dusty concrete and a pile of abandoned boxes. Then, two eyes, wide open, reflecting the light, staring straight up at me, not blinking, not moving, just watching. The shape of a face slowly came into view behind trash bags in an old broken chair. A man's face, pale, tense, his hair greasy and matted, his clothes dark and torn. I didn't breathe. He didn't breathe. For 10 seconds, we stared at each other without sound. Then he whispered, barely audible, "You're late." I sprinted. I don't remember reaching my apartment or unlocking the door or slamming it shut. I called 911 so fast I didn't process my own words. Police flooded the building within minutes. They searched the stairwell. Under the steps, they found blankets, food wrappers, 2 bottles of water, a flashlight and a small kitchen knife, and the shoe. But the man was gone. He had slipped out through a maintenance hatch nobody even knew was unlocked. They never caught him. For weeks, I couldn't bring myself to use the stairs. My landlord replaced the lighting, had maintenance seal every crawl space, installed a lock on the hatch. But even now, 2 years later, every time I climb a stairwell in any building, December or not, I check under the stairs. I walk faster. I avoid looking too closely because I know what it feels like to have eyes staring up at you. And every time I hear the faintest shift of concrete or the sound of breathing echoing in a stairwell, a part of me wonders if he ever really left, or if he just found a better place to wait. I've always believed that December nights feel different. Not magical or cozy, not filled with carols or festive lights. They're quiet, almost too quiet, like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something. And sometimes, that waiting isn't benign. It was December 14th, 2021, a Tuesday, the kind of night where the sky is black, the wind sharp, and the only light comes from flickering street lamps and occasional glowing windows. I'd just finished my late shift and pulled into my driveway, ready to finally go inside and shed the long, exhausting day. My neighborhood was silent, empty streets, frost crunching under tires, a soft breeze that rattled the trees. Then I saw it. A black SUV parked at the very end of my driveway, engine running, headlights off, completely still. I froze. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a neighbor's car, someone returning home late. But the longer I stared, the more wrong it felt. The SUV wasn't just parked, it was waiting, deliberately, intentionally. I stepped out, thinking maybe I'd catch a glimpse of the driver. "Hey, everything okay?" I called. My voice sounded braver than I felt. Nothing. The engine instantly cut off. No window rolled down, no response. Just a quiet hum of stillness. Every instinct I had screamed at me, "Go back inside, don't linger." But I wanted to know, I needed to know. I went back inside, locked the door, and tried to convince myself that I was imagining it, that someone would leave eventually, that nothing would happen. Minutes passed. 10, 15, 20. The SUV didn't move. I called my cousin. He worked nights but lived a few streets away. "You need to come by," I said, my voice shaking. "Something's off." While I waited, I kept glancing through the blinds. The SUV door creaked. Slowly, deliberately, a man stepped out. Black hoodie, jeans, hands in his pockets. He didn't look up, didn't wave, didn't speak. He just walked toward my driveway. Every step he took was precise, deliberate, like he knew exactly where I would be, like he was following some unspoken rhythm. My stomach sank. Every hair on my arm stood on end. I grabbed the heaviest thing in sight, a metal flashlight, and held it like a weapon. I watched from behind the curtains as he moved closer. My heartbeat thudded so loudly I was sure the sound filled the driveway. Then headlights suddenly illuminated the area, my cousin's truck pulling up behind the SUV. The man froze. For a heartbeat, I thought he might run. Instead, he turned, sprinted back to his SUV, jumped in, and drove off like he had been waiting for that exact moment. I thought it was over. I thought I was safe. And then I saw the passenger window. It rolled down slightly, a second person, completely still, watching my house, not moving, not speaking, just observing. Police came the next morning. They searched the neighborhood, tried to track the SUV, but found nothing. No plates, no witnesses, nothing. For days afterward, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind, every shadow outside my window sent my heart racing. I started leaving my porch light on, even during the day. I installed cameras facing the driveway, the street, and even the side of the house. Nothing, no activity, but I could feel it. The awareness of being watched, like someone had left a mark on the air itself. Weeks later, I noticed tire tracks in the morning snow. The same pattern. Circling, watching, waiting. Every December since, when I pull into my driveway at night, I check the street, the corners, the shadows. I glance up and down the block. Sometimes I swear I see a black SUV parked too far back to belong, too deliberate, waiting. The quiet of December isn't comforting, it's predatory. And I'll never forget the way it felt that night, the way someone stood there, waiting, patient, unseen, like they were learning my rhythm, like they knew exactly when I would arrive. And I realized something I wish I hadn't. Once someone decides to watch you, the quietest night can feel like the deadliest. December 23rd, 2019. The snowstorm had hit Minnesota hard that year, the kind that makes the world feel like a white void. Roads were closed, the wind ripped at everything, and streetlights flickered in a way that made the night feel even darker. I lived in a small duplex on the edge of town. My neighbor, an older woman named Linda, had already left for her holiday trip. Every year she disappeared a few days before Christmas. This year, I was alone in the right half of the duplex, bundled up waiting for the storm to pass. By 9 p.m., the snow was coming down sideways and visibility was near zero. I had settled on the couch with a blanket, a cup of hot cocoa, trying to calm my nerves as the wind rattled the siding. That's when I heard it, knocking, not on my door, on Linda's. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 3 more. At first I froze, thinking maybe she had forgotten something and returned unexpectedly. But the driveway was empty, no footprints, nothing. I grabbed my phone and muted the TV. I stepped closer to the window, squinting through the snow. A figure was there, tall, hood up, shoulders hunched, standing perfectly still under her porch light, which flickered with every gust of wind. No car in the driveway, no tracks leading up to the porch, except the ones the man had made, walking slowly, deliberately through the snow. I didn't open my door. I didn't want to get too close, but I shouted, "She's not home, can I help you?" Nothing. Silence. My stomach churned. Every instinct screamed at me, "Run, call someone, don't get closer." But I also felt frozen, like I was glued to the spot. My hand was trembling around the phone. I called Linda. She picked up immediately. "No, I'm hours away," she said. "No, why? Is someone there?" I told her everything. She told me to stay inside and not go outside under any circumstances. Then the knocking started again. Slower this time, heavier, almost deliberate. It stopped after a few seconds, replaced by the quietest possible sound. Breathing. I froze. My heart was hammering in my chest. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. Someone was listening. I checked the peephole. The figure wasn't at her door anymore. He was in front of mine, close enough that I could see the hood cast a shadow over his face. I couldn't see any features, just the shape. The snow had collected on the shoulders of his hoodie, except for the top of his head, as if someone or something had shielded him. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. Lightning flashed briefly, lighting up the porch for a split second. My blood ran cold. For an instant, I thought I saw movement behind the man, shadows shifting unnaturally, almost like he wasn't alone. And then the lights went out. Pitch black. I backed away slowly, phone in hand, ready to call 911, but the storm was so heavy that even dialing felt surreal, like the wind itself was swallowing all sound. Minutes stretched. 10, 20, 30. Then silence. Absolute silence. Finally, the storm eased slightly. I cracked the blinds and looked outside. He was gone, but the footprints remained. They circled the duplex twice, around both the front and side doors. Then, at the edge of the yard, they simply stopped, not fading away, not continuing, just stopped. Police came in the morning. They followed the tracks into the woods behind the duplex, but they couldn't find where the person went. There was no evidence of footprints leaving the forest, no sign of a vehicle, nothing. The next few days were tense. Every time I walked outside, every gust of wind, every shadow in the snow felt like him. I slept with the lights on. I locked every door and window, triple-checked them before bed, and even installed motion sensors outside. Every year since, when a snowstorm hits in December, I feel the same panic I felt that night. The kind of terror that isn't about seeing someone. It's about knowing they were there, knowing they were waiting, and knowing, somehow, that they could be watching again. Sometimes, even now when I look at the snow-covered yard, I swear I see a shadow move where it shouldn't. And I hear faint, deliberate footsteps crunching in the frost, even though I know no one is there. December isn't safe. The world may seem blanketed in white, but for some of us it's just easier to hide, easier to watch, easier to wait. And I've learned the hard way that some visitors don't announce themselves politely. They wait, they watch, and they never leave.